Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tudor Price. I'm the Deputy Chief Exec at the Kent and Victor Chamber of Commerce, and we are responsible for delivering the Kent and Medway Growth Hub, which is a business support service that's available to all businesses in Kent and Medway. Contact details are up on the live chat already. You can see them up there, the Growth Hub mailing list if you need to find out about grants and updates, and obviously the helpline number, which we're currently running for the next 3 months to answer any questions around businesses trying to navigate their way through the current climate. This is the second live Q&A that we've done, so we've had a pilot run, so you are enjoying perfection on this occasion, I hope. And we're delighted that we've been joined by Deirdre Wells from Visit Kent, who is going to add obviously her input and expertise towards the hospitality sector, which of course is a significant weekend for them this weekend. So we are joined not just by Deirdre, but we are also joined by Annie Sargent, who is the Partnerships Manager for Environmental Health at Sevenoaks and Dartford District Council, and also Nathan Martin from Kent Trading Standards. What I'm going to do, I'll just ask them very quickly to introduce themselves, a bit about what they do, and then we will launch straight into questions. So if you have questions, please do start firing them into the live chat area, and we will deal with those as we go. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so I'm going to come to Deirdre first. Deirdre, would you just like to introduce yourself and a bit about what Visit Kent does?
Thanks, Tudor. Thank you for inviting me this afternoon. And good afternoon, everybody. Very exciting day today as we prepare for unlocking tomorrow. I'm Chief Executive of Visit Kent. So it's my job to support you and your businesses in attracting all our wonderful visitors to Kent, and also provide those fantastic experiences for our Kent residents too. I think it's been an incredibly challenging time for the industry. So we've seen footfall and spend drop up to 90% in April. Lots of businesses closed, and I think our high streets and our communities have really suffered as a consequence. I think all the things that we love and enjoy about living and working in Kent have been closed over the last few months. So we're really excited about getting those things back up and running. I think the key challenge will be opening viably. So it was great to see that the social distancing rules have been changed a little bit from the 2 metre down to the 1 metre plus. And I know that many businesses have been working extraordinarily hard to deliver their offer in a COVID secure way. And I think the key thing now will be getting enough footfall through the door to make it viable and to start to recover some of that revenue over the coming months. So 2 things that we're doing at the moment, our focus really at the moment is on consumer confidence. We've done a lot in recent weeks on business support and just directing people to the various schemes that were available to support businesses while we were in lockdown. But I think the key thing now is really getting people moving again. So we're working with Producing Kent to launch a consumer confidence campaign and a consumer pledge and a campaign to support your local, which launches today. And then later in the summer, we'll be doing a larger consumer confidence campaign, which will go beyond Kent as well as focus on residents. So lots to be done to really make sure that we can keep the season going as long as possible, and to start getting that footfall back to your doors. So hope that we can answer as many questions as possible, and look forward to hearing from you about all your plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Deirdre. And some of those links to the campaigns that Deirdre was just mentioning will get posted onto the live chat area, so keep an eye out for those. You can lift those as we go forward. I'm going to come to Annie next from Environmental Health. Annie.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Yes, I'm just here representing the environmental health profession in the county. I am the manager at Sevenoaks and Dartford Environmental Health Partnership. So my team are actually responsible for about 10,000 premises across the 2 councils. And hopefully I've kept enough up to speed with the legislation changes to be able to answer some of your questions today. So that's all from me.
Annie, thank you very much indeed. Great to have you with us again. And last but by no means least, Nathan. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Tudor. Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan Martin. I'm the Principal Trading Standards Officer for Commercial and Food Services at Kent Trading Standards, working in the Business Advice Services team. That's a team dedicated to working with businesses and advising businesses, help you trade profitably, legally, fairly, protect your business, that sort of thing. Trading standards mainly get involved in business closures, who can open during COVID. So that's my primary area where I can advise you, but where I can add to the social distancing conversation, I will do. But my main role in that is to support Annie. Thank you very much, Tudor.
Nathan, thank you very much indeed. Great. Thank you very much to our speakers for outlining their remit here today. Now, the first thing I must point out is the pace of change has been phenomenal, in particular around guidance and legislation. So there is a bit of a caveat to today's session in that we see announcements from Whitehall and from the Cabinet, which obviously give a clear intent and a clear statement of date, time, location and changes. Unfortunately, there is a lag effect to the legislation. So legislation then has to be drafted, and a lot of the things that are currently being stated to change on the 4th of July and obviously on the 6th of July is now being rushed through Parliament and civil servants. So the law has yet to change on some of these things. So everything that is being given to you today is current as at now, but of course tomorrow or the day after the legislation may finally be published. So there will be a disconnect, I think, between what we've heard the Prime Minister say and what the law states at the moment, but it is only a matter of time. So please keep that in mind when we're giving you the answer, because there is a context to all of this. So it may seem to conflict with what you've heard or read about on the news, but actually there is just the legislation is obviously slow to come through behind all of this. So please keep that in mind as we go forward. Right, so let's crack on. We have some questions just coming in already. So we're going to pick up the first one here. So this is a question on behalf of a cafe in Herne Bay. So should mask wearing of staff be compulsory or at the team member's discretion? And what is the guidance on customer toilets? There's two questions in there. I think this is really around social distancing. So I'm going to come to Annie first, and then Deirdre. I know you've got some points to add on this as well. So Annie first, and then we'll come to Deirdre.
Okay, as far as any of these laws are concerned, they're not actually laws, it's guidance. So what you have to do is you have to look at your own business and do your own risk assessment for your own business. And if you decide that wearing of masks is appropriate, then that is up to you. But there is no rule that says, or no law that says masks must be worn in a premises. So it really is up to you. If you don't think it's safe for your staff not to wear a mask, then obviously you can put that in place. But there is no strict rule on that. As far as was the second thing about?
Yes, about guidance on customer toilets. Obviously, this is about people having to sort of scrum together or clean them down in between. How does that work?
Yeah, so again, toilets can be opened to the public in premises. However, again, social distancing precautions have to be put in place. So a business would have to look at a queuing system to make sure that people kept the 2 meters separate before and after they enter the toilet. And also what they might want to do is look at closing off, if they have more than one toilet or more than one urinal, they might want to look at blocking off toilets so that people aren't sitting or standing next to each other less than 2 meters apart. And also just again, frequent cleaning of touch points, so door handles, surfaces, with a sanitizer. Again, just more frequent cleaning in that respect would be expected, and I think the public would value you doing that in your businesses if they saw that happening on a regular basis. So yeah, opening of toilets is fine, but like I said, just with some extra precautions, like everything else in this situation, we've just got to, it's all full belt and braces, I'm afraid.
Excellent. Deirdre, just come across to you because I know you've run a number of you've produced a number of guidance documents and leaflets and stuff as part of your work at Visit Kent. Have you got any suggestions or tips that they might be able to employ here?
Yeah, and I would say if you go on the Visit Kent Business website, there is all the guidance. There's also a load of webinars that we've hosted recently, which you can download, because we've actually gleaned quite a lot of information from those businesses that are already open. So remembering that those that have parks and gardens and open spaces have been open for a few weeks. So, and actually we've learned quite a lot through that. On the point about masks, and Annie, of course, is absolutely right about this. There is what is the guidance requirement, and a lot of this is around making staff feel comfortable themselves. But actually, if there's also that consumer communication piece. So particularly for people who have got businesses where their customers are elderly, a number of businesses have found that actually the mask can be a bit of a barrier to communication, but also puts up a bit of a front. So not to say that there are absolutely ways that you can communicate a friendly, welcoming message wearing a mask, and those that are very front of house, taking tickets, and certainly in places where there aren't screens, may want to do so. But there are other ways of doing it, like a number of organizations are using visors instead so people can see their face and see the smile. I think what's really important is, as I say, staff feel comfortable and safe, and that customers do as well. So sometimes, you will know your customers well. Will they feel more secure, and your business and your layout well? Will they feel more secure if there is a very visible difference when people arrive, so they can see people wearing masks and things being a bit different to what's normal? For bigger organizations, if you can use your website, do, because communicating in advance as to what's going to be different is really important for two reasons. One, I think it shows that you've got a grip and that you know what you're doing, and it'll reassure people who are checking out, are things open, what is it going to be like, do I need to book? And the website traffic for most organizations that have been open the last few weeks has gone through the roof. So people are checking websites. So it's a really good way, and quite a socially distanced way, of being able to tell your story, show people what's going to be different. You can do a little video, a little handheld video, take people around going, this is what the loos are going to look like, this is how you're going to have to pay, all of those sort of things, and you can just do it on your iPhone. I think the point that comes up more than anything in our discussions is toilets, and interesting stats that, over 55% of people will not even come to you if they think your toilets are shut. So, and obviously the older people get, the more nervous they get about that. So I think being able to communicate clearly that your toilets are open will be really important. Interestingly, there was and this again might be for slightly bigger premises, a good example from RHS Wisley, where they had originally got a huge long bank of toilets, which they blocked off every second loo. And they had originally got a person on security just to manage it all. But because they had done this very clear signage and blocked off every second cubicle, it very quickly policed itself. So I think start cautious, start careful, make sure your signage is really clear. You can also do signage in a way that is very engaging, is very on brand. I think it was Port Lynn were doing, keep a lion's distance between you. But also I think that just triggers that point that things are different. But I think it can be friendly too. And I think that's really important as we go into this phase.
Okay, I'm just going to move on, so we get a lot of questions to get through here this afternoon. Okay, thank you, Deirdre. I think you're absolutely right in terms of making sure that you are communicating. And one little tip that we picked up on is quite a lot of people are registered on Facebook or on Google Business, so they have sort of the Google Maps details. Again, you need to make sure you've updated that, because people will be looking to see if you are open and if your toilets are open and those sort of facilities. So taking those principles that Deirdre's just shared with us, making sure that you are looking at all your channels of communication, so not just the website but elsewhere, social media as well. just to come to the question of distancing here, because we've got two questions which I guess relates to the idea of being stood next to each other in a cubicle or sat next to each other. This is around the 1 metre plus. So is it clear, this is from Sherry, so is it clear what 1 metre plus is for inside? And then there's a question mark around 1 metre from Monday question mark. So when does this 1 metre plus come in, and what exactly does it mean? So who wants to take that one first? So let's see one of our team. Annie, thank you very much. Annie, what do you what's the answer on this one?
Okay, yeah, sorry. This 1 metre plus thing has caused a complete nightmare, both for the people who are trying to keep control of this situation, and obviously for businesses. I can only apologise, really. So what it means is that actually the law hasn't changed in the fact that you should keep 2 metre distance at all times, if possible. So if you can't achieve a 2 metre distance between people, and it has to be a pretty good reason not to be able to do that. So say if people are working in a kitchen together, the plus part actually means you need to put some other protection in place. So what it actually means is something like, say if you've got a restaurant, and you can't, obviously you want to maximise the number of people who are sitting in your restaurant. If you can't do the 2 metre separation, and say if you've got some booths or some cubicles, you need to be able to put a screen between people. So that's your plus. That is your extra security, your extra safety. In a kitchen or a kitchen environment or something like that, if you can't maintain a 2 metre social distance, then you have to wear a mask, for instance, or a visor, as Deirdre alluded to. So that's what it actually means. And so when the legislation comes out, we'll see how prescriptive that is in the legislation. But again, we don't know.
Is that going to be likely to be Monday then? Is it that change, or is it going to be later?
No, it's supposed to be coming in end of today. So we're all supposed to be rush and read it, ready for tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So it's a really quick turnaround. But I think again with all of this stuff, it's for businesses, it's just common sense. And as Deirdre has said, it's about showing your customers that you care, that you've taken steps to protect them. That's the things that's going to put you ahead of the game with other businesses, is just sort of what steps you have put in place, using common sense and just being sensible about it. So that is what the 2 metre down to 1 metre plus means, as far as I understand it. I don't know if Nathan wants to say something else on that. I don't know.
I was just going to add, just to interject really, because I think one of the things we've learned from the last Q&A, and is worth reiterating for everyone's benefit here, is obviously it's paramount that both your staff and your customers are kept safe, and I don't doubt for a moment everyone is planning on that. But I think really from the regulator's perspective, it's probably worth mentioning that no one is trying to catch you out here. No one is looking to grab you and fine you. It really is about, if you're not doing things right, then it's really about helping you improve. And that's why there's a lot more collaboration, a lot more support from the regulators and from institutions like Visit Kent, who are there not necessarily to sort of try and enforce, but actually just try and help you get it right. So it's tremendously subjective. There's a lot of variety here, but all of the businesses that we've spoken to, they're not meant to be open. They haven't been fined, they've just been told and educated accordingly. Likewise, if people aren't social distancing or they haven't got enough PPE in place, again, it's being improvement notices rather than anyone being penalised. So you need to sort of make sure you don't feel that you are constantly dodging the bullet from enforcers here. They are actually here to really just try and help get things back and make your business as successful as it can be. So just on that sort of distancing, I know we've had questions in the past around customers queuing outside and bits and pieces like that. Annie or Deirdre, did you have any sort of comments on how you might manage that? So Deirdre first.
I think in all of the research that we've seen lately, the consumer is incredibly confident about businesses and staffs getting this right. And I think the point about having a visible change when you arrive, so people go, oh, it's a bit different here, and a visible regime, whether it's a cleaning regime, whether it's social distancing. What people are most worried about is other people and their behavior. And I think, which is one of the reasons why we're focusing our campaign today on that, caring customer, to make sure that we sort of almost put the onus on the customer to say, actually, it's up to you to make sure this works as much as it is for the business. Because if this doesn't work and we end up with another spike, then actually we're all going to lose out. So I think absolutely agree with what Tudor's saying. We need to make sure and support businesses that they do what they can to get this right. And if things aren't going well, then to support businesses maybe to do things differently. The other huge piece of advice that we got from the businesses that are already open is they said, talk to your staff and keep talking to your staff. Do regular reviews, because actually some things you set up may not work in the way you think they're going to work because of the way people behave. And actually, if there's a way of doing things differently that deliver the same outcome, then perhaps, change it. So I think regular reviews are really critical. But I think until we open and see how people behave, and I have no doubt that the vast majority of people will behave very well and the small majority of people will be just ridiculous. And we just need to be able to find a way of managing that. But I think, having a sensible approach is the key thing.
Deirdre, thank you very much indeed. That's great. Annie, is there anything you want to add on that at all?
No, again, it to be fair, the queuing outside thing, which obviously came in, opening of retail businesses was just a couple of weeks ago, and we were all very concerned about how that was going to work and whether queues were going to clash and things like that. And actually, that just hasn't really been the case. Everyone's been very sensible. Businesses have managed it, and as Deirdre says, the public, they get it, and generally they will comply with whatever measures are put in place. So I don't particularly think that's an issue now, but it'd be interesting to see what happens this weekend, to be honest.
Well, I think we're seeing some new businesses open, and in particular we're thinking pubs, of course, and how that will be. We've got some questions on that, so we'll come back to that in a moment. There's a question here around China porcelain crockery, obviously using plates and stuff and serving them in the restaurant environment. What sort of steps should businesses be taking to try and sort of make sure that they're doing the right thing there?
I was going to say I'll take it this one. I mean, there's no reason why China can't be used. It obviously just has to be cleaned in between customer use. It's no different from any other hygiene requirement that a food business in particular is running. There's not only COVID out there, there's all sorts of other bugs. So obviously the precautions that are put in place to protect people from other bugs equally apply to COVID. So absolutely no problem. The danger will come from sharing things that don't get washed up. So things like condiments, salt and pepper pots, I don't know, anything that's on the table that actually gets left on between customers, that sort of thing will have to be looked at now. And I think a lot of people are moving to sachets and other systems. But yeah, I mean, but the actual use of crockery and serviettes and things like that, if you're using laundry services, they're all fine. They will do the job fine. Actually, soap and water does actually get rid of the virus, and that's why we're obviously encouraged to wash our hands so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Deirdre, did you want to add something to that?
I just love the fact that other disgusting viruses are available.
Yes.
Other than corona. I think just to say, there's UK Hospitality have done a fantastic piece of supporting guidance. It runs to 140 pages. So, if you're feeling like you need an insomnia cure, it's quite a good one. But actually, it goes into quite some detail about things that Annie's mentioned around sachets. All sorts of, there are all sorts of, great ways of minimizing the amount of touch points that are on tables. So I would recommend it. It's on our website. There's a link to it. As I say, UK Hospitality has done a huge job in terms of preparing businesses for reopening.
Brilliant. Thank you. So we're going to sort of move outdoors a little bit here now. So we've got a number of questions which relate to, first of all, whether or not they're allowed to open at all. So Nathan, I'm going to bring you in on these questions in a minute. So we've got a question from Greg here around clarifying the guidelines around groups, i.e. gym training outside. Currently, we're operating in groups of 5 plus a coach, socially distanced. Many other affiliates are being told from 4th they can operate in more than one bubble per coach if distinctly separate groups with one coach. Can you confirm this is acceptable? And then on the same sort of question around whether or not they're allowed to be open and outside, there was a question for in relation to beaches. I'm just trying to find it on here now. So I'll come back to this there somewhere. A question around so from Buttercup Sanctuary from Goats. I've been there. Very nice afternoon out. Thank you very much. We have started to open our animal sanctuary to the public, obviously implementing all the changes needed re COVID-19 safety. We are offering takeaway tea and coffee refreshments from our tea hut. However, are we able to open our toilets? And if so, how would you suggest we to do this? So are they able to open at all? So Nathan, a couple of questions about who is and who isn't allowed to open right now.
If I can cover the sport side of things first, the limit on restrictions, the limit on the number of people that can get together has been lifted. It can now be up to 30 people. So you can do your outside sporting classes like a boot camp, that sort of thing, with up to 30 people included. That would include your coach as well, but you don't have to be siloing off for one coach to 5 people anymore. That's perfectly fine. What I would recommend is that, well, first off, you do have to maintain social distancing. So I would recommend that you don't do activities that require the use of a partner. So for example, holding a log together and doing crunches, that sort of thing. Avoid using those. Where you have to use equipment and it's unavoidable for people to use the equipment, make sure it gets cleaned down before it goes on to the next person. So yeah, those sort of classes, they can happen, not a problem. With regards to
the animal sanctuary and about whether they're allowed, because they're obviously doing takeaway service. Toilets, sort of again public toilets. Are they okay with that?
Their restaurant, their cafe is allowed to open. Up until now, it's been takeaway and delivery only, but with restrictions that are coming in place tomorrow, they will be able to have people sit and consume cakes, cups of teas, coffee, etc. on the premises, but all the social distancing requirements must be complied with, and the government has already published.
Nathan's suddenly frozen on me. Hopefully it's just a temporary glitch. Okay, while we're just waiting for Nathan to reconnect, hopefully that's just a temporary situation. There was, just in terms of the outside stuff, Annie, I'm going to come to you on social distancing, and then Deirdre as well, just to sort of pick up on this. This is to do with, we were very clear that before tomorrow, the notion was that you could have a takeaway service only, but you couldn't then put benches and chairs outside because people had to disperse and move away. You're back with us, Nathan. I'll come back to you, Nathan, in a second. I'm just going to carry on with this question here for Annie and Deirdre. What's the situation now? Can sort of businesses like the Tea Hut put tables and chairs around outside? And if so, what are they got to do to be compliant? Annie first.
Again, there's been a lot of discussion about this. If it's your land and it's within your curtilage of your premises, you can put tables and chairs out if that helps you with maintaining social distancing for your business. And let's hope the weather's conducive to that. But I think the latest thing that we've been talking about is pavement licenses for tables and chairs. And the current situation is that if you already have a pavement license, obviously you can carry on with that. But I understand legislation's coming in at the end of this month where you can actually apply to the local council and ask for a pavement license to put some furniture out. If you have adjoining land and you get the landowner's permission to put tables and chairs out on that's perfectly fine as well. So yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to encourage the cafe culture, and you know, as best as possible, they will do so. But obviously, you have to consider the practicalities of that. So we can't have tables and chairs blocking pavements or making people walk into the road, etc., etc. So there are other factors to consider as well. So hopefully that's it in a nutshell as far as I can understand. But I don't know if Nathan or Deirdre want to add on to that.
Because Deirdre, some of your members must have sort of already considered how they might provide that outdoor space. As Annie quite rightly was saying, as we said at the top of the meeting here, that the legislation is a bit slow to come through. So it's going to be frustrating because businesses will want to sort of capitalise on getting wider space outside things, but clearly there's going to be some legislative delay there. What have the members been doing sort of with Visit Kent, and what advice have you been giving about outdoor space?
Well, I think what's also really important too is that on the consumer sentiment, there is a really clear dichotomy between indoor and outdoor. So people are much more likely to visit somewhere that's got outdoor space than indoor. People are still feeling quite nervous about being indoors. And I think back to my point about viability, being able to get as many covers as possible is going to mean the difference, I think, between opening in a viable way. So where possible, I would say, you know, look to expand your footprint outdoors. It's what the customer's looking for, and it's probably the easiest way that you're going to be able to get the sort of numbers in that you can do in a manageable way that will start to get that revenue back up again. You know, there's very little silver linings to be had in our cloud at the moment, but one of them is the fact that at least we are coming into the summer. And to Annie's point about, yes, there absolutely is an acknowledgement from the legislators that actually we need to be able to facilitate this wherever possible. And I know that local authorities, you know, the business department has been looking at how can we enable local authorities to be able to provide a much more flexible approach for our high streets that does keep people safe, that still manages the sort of secure emergency service access. I think one of the things that we need to be thinking about is what the look and feel of our high streets is going to be going forward, because, you know, we were already seeing a decline in retail, and there's a real danger that this pandemic will, you know, be the death knell for many of our high streets. So can we use these temporary powers to be able to almost reconfigure our high streets, to be able to spread out, you know, to develop some of that cafe piazza culture that we can temporarily have while it's not lashing rain. And I know that some businesses are looking at, well, how could we do this going into the winter? What do we need in terms of, you know, sort of temporary coverings, you know, patio heaters? And again, I as much as we can facilitate that, we should, because sadly this could be with us for some time, and that's certainly that desire to be outdoors rather than indoors is certainly something the consumer wants. So I think we need to try and do as much as we can to facilitate that, and I think we will see some really great examples of that over the next few weeks. If I can give a bit of shout out to Shepherd Neame, who, you know, 300 pubs working incredibly hard to be able to do exactly that. So, and we'll be, you know, showcasing some of that on our website about people who've really got it right.
Okay, that's great. Deirdre, thank you very much indeed. Nathan, you're back with us. I'm sorry we had a temporary freeze there. We lost you. But so you were answering the question around, again, sort of opening. I think we talked about the toilets question, which I think you sort of got to an answer. But there's a couple of other questions around being allowed to open. One was specifically from, let me just find the question here. So it was around registry offices. So this was from Councillor Avtar. Sandhu, nice to have you with us this afternoon. I'd like to know when the registry are going to begin to take new booking for couples. I've been patiently waiting for the bookings that were cancelled. So this is really around the opening and closure of businesses. Now, where are we on some of the businesses? Who can open and who has to stay closed? What's the story in the registry offices?
Well, with regards to registry offices, I believe they're run as a council service, so it'll be up to them to make the decision when they want to open. But venues in general, businesses, events, conferences, etc., they've been told that they can't open. But parties, things like weddings, etc., they've been told they can go ahead, but they have to have a maximum occupancy of 30 people. So these events could potentially go ahead from the 4th of July, but they're going to have to be much smaller affairs than they have been in the past. But specifically with regards to the registry offices, you're going to have to speak to your local council, and it's up to them when they are going to want to reopen that service. As a council employee myself, I know that council is being very, very careful about getting people back to work and back into offices, because they obviously don't want to do anything to, spread COVID-19. So I don't think you'll have a hard and fast date of when they all reopen, and it's going to be staggered depending on which council wants to do it.
There's a couple of other open and closed. Sorry, yes, Deirdre, do you want to add something to that?
I think apart from toilets, the single biggest question that we're getting at the moment is about weddings. It's huge business for our many of our venues. I sit on the government's tourism industry emergency response group, and I think, again, we've been raising it week in, week out. The issue that we've got at the moment is that absolutely the new rules for weddings allows the actual wedding ceremony to go ahead. But what it doesn't allow is the party afterwards. So there is restrictions around receptions. There is, you can't have music because you can't do anything that's going to make people raise their voice. So effectively, for many people, the wedding reception can't go ahead. You can have the official ceremony in a church or in a registry office, but you can't have the party afterwards. So and I know the Business and Events Partnership are doing huge lobbying on the industry's behalf on that, to try and see whether we can get that changed in the coming weeks, because at the moment, I think it's kind of the death knell from many of our venues over the summer, who are really hoping that even if it was a smaller, more modest affair, that at least they could get something in terms of that business back. Whereas I think what's going to happen mostly is that people just defer.
I think probably I'll be speaking to everyone that's on the call here, that the frustration and I guess sometimes the incomprehensibility of the laws, and I'm going to come to this one, Nathan, I'm going to bring this back in on this because I've heard this from so many times. The question is on behalf of a hairdresser, I run a hairdresser that also offers beauty treatments like manicures. Can I open?
Well, fortunately, that one is quite cut and dried. No pun intended. Oh, sorry, that was terrible. The hairdresser or the barber's part of it can open. Unfortunately, the government have made a very, very clear distinction between hairdressing and barbering and other services such as manicures, tanning, sparring, that sort of thing. So you can open for hairdressing, but unfortunately you can't offer the services that are on the restricted list. So you could do your traditional hairdressing services, but nothing else. If your business effectively operates two different businesses, so you have a hairdresser and a separate nail bar which is present in your property, then you could open your hairdresser, but the nail bar itself would have to remain closed.
At the risk of putting you on the spot, do you know what's the reasoning behind that? Because I mean, I'm sure, like everybody else, you're sitting there thinking, really? And I'm not shooting the messenger here. So I'm just, any idea what the reasoning behind that is?
I've been asked this one several times.
Sure.
Government, they have not chosen to share their reasoning with us. It's been a decree from on high that this is what they've decided. What I am confident is that there will be some reasoning behind it. They have medical experts and that sort of thing, and they will have consulted with those. I suspect it's probably down to the density of people that are there, the time you spend in contact with each other, the proximity of your faces, that sort of thing. But I don't know, because they haven't told us the reason. All they've said is these businesses can and can't close. But if Annie's got something better, then please chuck it over to her.
Annie, come on then, tell us why. What's going on here?
From my sources, which when I had this discussion with my team today, it's about the fact things like it's about touching skin, and skin being a vector for COVID-19. So with hairdressing, you can actually wear gloves, that nobody has to actually touch anybody physically to carry that out. And I understand that they're not allowed to do blow drying and things like this either. So it's literally, you can go in for a cut and a colour, or maybe, and just you can you have to kind of leave it at that. But the reason why you can't do things like nail bars is because most COVID is spread by hand-to-hand contact, and there's lots of nooks and crannies in people's hands where they can actually spread it, and you actually, there's just more of a risk. It's closer contact, and I think this is the reason why. I'm not quite sure about tanning. I think that could be allowed back because you can actually control the distancing for that. But anything that is intimate or would involve closer contact, that is the main reason, Nathan. I think it's just it's like you say, it's scientifically not as safe as hairdressing.
That's that contact is the thing, really, about close proximity.
Yeah, I mean,
Nathan,
we've had acupuncturists asking us, and the law is quite clear about, unless it's a medically supervised procedure at this time, even acupuncturists aren't allowed to operate. Hopefully it'll all come in the next few weeks, but it's going to be one of the last things to be unlocked.
Nathan, I was going to ask a quick one about the tanning salons, because I know there's been some misinformation out there in the past. What's the latest on tanning salons?
The government has issued guidance which makes it quite clear that tanning salons, spa treatments, that sort of thing, they're not permitted to open.
Okay.
As Annie alluded to, we think there's going to be another review in about 3 weeks, perhaps relaxations in a month from now. Hopefully they'll be rolled out then, but we won't know until the government makes an announcement.
Okay. Now, we are at just gone 1:45, so time is running away with us. So I need to make sure that if you've got any questions, get them in now, and we'll crack on a little bit to make sure we cover them. We're going to turn now to accommodation. So we've got a question here from Fraser's. Fraser's have a mixture of bed and breakfast and self-catering. We are having many inquiries from larger groups, as we're going to accommodate up to 20 guests on site. Customers are being increasingly unhappy. We're only taking a maximum of 2 households. So what's the story there? I mean, what's the regulations around accommodation at the moment? Who wants to take that one first? Nathan, we'll come to you first.
Yeah, the guidance is pretty clear. You can open your hotels, your bed and breakfasts, your campsites, etc. So you're not restricted on ensuring that only a certain number of families or anything come into your premises. Where you might run into a little bit of trouble is if you're using shared facilities, like shower facilities, toilet facilities, that sort of thing. The government guidance is that you should try and limit those so that they're specific to the room, so ensuite, or only used by a certain number of rooms. If you can't have a 1-to-1 ratio, you should be operating something like a bookable thing. So this room can use the facilities within this sort of time as well. B&Bs might have slightly more of a problem because I suspect they're going to have shared facilities like restaurants and stuff, which are a lot smaller, where they might have trouble doing social distancing. Again, I think, I'm sure Annie will be able to tell you more, but I think you need to go for the bookable system. So you make sure you say to each guest, this is your time to use the restaurant, and then you have your cleaning and all sorts in between the uses there. And if you can't do that safely, I wouldn't have thought you'd be able to actually operate those services. So more bed, less breakfast.
More bed, less breakfast. I think it's good advice for all of us, really, in lockdown. Annie, yes, did you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I don't know if Lisa's talking about families, big, large families staying at the premises and then wanting to have big dinner parties in the evening. Obviously, the point is, you can all stay in Fraser's, but you can't all then meet up for dinner, you know, from all different households in the dining room. So I'm afraid that is the main restriction. So they can obviously do something outside, you know, have some sort of eating arrangement outside, but actually in the dining room they wouldn't be allowed to all sit together. So I don't know if that's what Lisa's alluding to. And, you know, she's kind of restricted in what service she can offer.
Okay, Lisa, if you're still on the call, then by all means pop that question in there just to clarify. But thank you very much indeed. I think Deirdre was talking earlier about the viability of trying to put in place some of these measures. And there's been a couple of people who have obviously highlighted the fact that I think Paul from Victor's has again highlighted the fact that if you put in that sort of that social distancing and comply, then some businesses you're just not going to have enough covers to be able to make it worthwhile. Deirdre, what would you say to organisations that are in that position where it doesn't sort of stack up financially, and how then perhaps Nathan, from your side of things, how you know there are going to be those that are going to be doing the right thing and sort of think, right, we're not going to open because we're not, you know, we don't want to compromise the safety of our staff or our customers, and there will be those who aren't quite so fussed and a bit more slipshod. And so where do we go with this sort of level playing field? So Deirdre, what's your advice for businesses in those situations?
Well, I think the first thing to say is, you know, just because you can open doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And I think every individual business will be taking its own decisions about whether this is the right commercially viable thing to do. I would say two things. I suspect that we will see a huge surge this weekend. One of the pieces of research that we've seen is that 1 in 5 people are busting a gut to go to the first thing they can go to once it's open. Interestingly, 1 in 5 won't go to something for about a year. It's the 3 in 5 who are going to do, I'll see how it goes, that we're really interested in. And they will judge businesses on how they perform and how they manage social distancing. So although I think it's incredibly challenging for businesses to operate in a commercially viable way, I would say if you think that you can do it and you think you can give it a go, then do it. Because actually, you may find that over the next few weeks, if you do it well, that volume of business will start to build. The other thing that I'm really conscious of is that we lost the spring and early summer, which is the time of the year when our businesses make a significant amount of revenue, the normal sort of revenue that will last you through to the winter. People are talking about this year as being the year of 3 winters. For businesses who, if they can't open in the next few weeks, and we will do all we can to make sure that that demand is extending into the autumn. But I think if people don't grab this opportunity, there is a danger that, you know, we go into the winter and people can't survive. However, for many businesses, there is an operational cost of opening. And I think they need to make a very, savvy decision as to whether it is worth it or not. But I think if you can use outdoor space, if you can think of this as a slow build up, then I think there are some real opportunities here. The other thing is that just to, to bear in mind, of course, is that, the industry has been very supported by the furlough scheme, but that finishes in October. And one of the things that we've been lobbying really hard for is to say, well, actually, for many of our businesses, there is that question about viability. And until such time as they can open in a viable way, the government needs to keep supporting them in order to, to make sure that when they reopen, that they are here to reopen next year. So I'd say, make sure, do your sums, but if you can, give it a go, but think of it as a slow build up and don't do it until you're ready. That's
great, Lisa, thank you very much. Nathan, so I'm going to come to you just asking around that issue around enforcement here. It may be your area, I don't know, but it's always frustrating. There are the good businesses and the bad businesses, and how no one wants to be disadvantaged because someone's getting away with it. So I'm just interested on the sort of enforcement side of things. And Annie, I was going to come to you again, coming back to the accommodation side around how long should a business leave the rooms empty before they can reoccupy them? Is there any rules around that? So Nathan first.
Well, firstly, I'd echo what Deirdre said at the start of her statement, but from the other side, if you don't think that you can open safely, keep your customers safe, prevent the spread of COVID-19, that sort of thing, then you might have to make the decision that you can't reopen. If you choose to keep your business going through trading on different platforms, new business products, that sort of thing, then we will do everything we can to help you do that legally, fairly, and in a way that protects your business. So please come to us if you need advice on that. With regards to people not following the rules, if you make a mistake, if you do something wrong because you don't know you're supposed to be following the rules, or you weren't aware of some sort of requirement, that sort of thing, a genuine mistake, we will do everything we can to help you put that right. There will be a small minority that just think, stuff it, I'm not going to follow the rules. And I'm guessing it's those ones that you're referring to here. That puts us in a difficult position because we want businesses to get back on track. We want our economy to recover. But when somebody is flaunting the rules, then we do have to take enforcement action, because as you say, it's not that we're picking on that business, it's we're protecting the public who don't want to get COVID-19, who want the issue to go away, and we're protecting those businesses who are doing things right and they are trying to trade fairly. So in those situations, we would have to take enforcement action, but we would go down the route of advising first. So we would try and get you on side, say, look, you are required to do this, get you to put it in place, help you to get it in place. And then if you still decide you're not going to do it, we have no choice but to take some form of action.
Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, Annie, we're just going to come to you on that question around sort of using rooms and accommodation, and then I'm going to sort of rattle through some of the questions because we've got a few that are coming in very quickly now, and we want to make sure we get these done as much as possible. So, Annie, so if you're an accommodation provider, do you have to sort of leave the room vacant for 72 hours or something in between?
No, it's again, if you clean the room properly, if you pay particular attention to touch points, if you're using British Standard approved cleaning products that I'm sure that your industries advise you to use, there should be no problem with immediate occupancy after you've cleaned the room. The disease is predominantly spread by people, so if the room's been cleaned to a high standard, there really shouldn't be any issue.
That's great. I'm going to crack on with the next question because I want to make sure everyone has their chance. So I'm going to fire a question. I'll see a hand go up from one of the three of you, and then we'll get that answer and then move on to the next one, if that's okay. So a question here from Seth Gulliver. Run a children's play cafe, clearly understand the guidance around opening up indoor play areas to the public and why we can't do that. However, I'd like to open my place up for private bookings, allowing 2 households at a time only, and then completely cleaning everything down. So being compliant, very sensible, doing all the right things, this will be safer. Now, how does this work? Can that happen, Nathan?
The guidance that we've been given, and I say we'll see the legislation tomorrow, it doesn't make any distinction between household groups using these sort of facilities at all. It just says these sort of businesses cannot open. So it'd have to go on the guidance, because we expect the legislation to say the same thing. You cannot open indoor play areas, regardless of who it is that's using them.
Does that apply to things like escape rooms and laser tag and places like that as well?
Yes, I would assume so. It's quite a woolly definition that's been given in the current guidance. It talks about indoor play areas, including soft play and other sort of sporting facilities. And a lot of these things will fall into a sort of combination of the two of them, because it's not sport, but it is a sort of recreation and play where you're running around, you're exhaling, you're in close contact with people, all the things that are going to increase the spread of COVID-19. So a lot of these sort of things, like the panic rooms, like the laser tags, all that sort of thing, they're not going to be listed specifically in the legislation, because the legislation would be like a book if they were.
Absolutely.
But
yeah,
they are going to fall into these sort of general areas.
It's imperfect. I think any sort of guidelines and regulations that are issued in a hurry are always open to debate. So, okay, let's move on very quickly. So, a question from Lindsay here. I've not seen any mention of teaching for adults on the government side. As from tomorrow, can we run our art classes for adults? So, adult education and again classes inside in our studio. If we are able to seat students 2 meters apart, I presume we can teach up to 30 people outside. What would you advise, please? So who wants to take that one? Is that Nathan?
Yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah, this was, we had a pre-submitted question along the same lines, and I spent a long time researching it. And the bottom line was, it hasn't been covered in the guidance. None of the other officers that I've got access to through our various sort of knowledge sharing websites have dealt with the issue either. What I would say is we have the details of the people that have logged those questions. When the legislation comes out tomorrow, we'll have an idea, and those people who have pre-submitted will get in touch with them directly and give them an answer to that question.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. So, Lindsay, keep an eye on that. And I guess the one that would apply to the question that came in from a representative from Mid-Kent College around opening their cafe with that within the FE environment. Is there specific clarity on that, or?
If you're operating a cafe or restaurant, you're allowed to open it following all the restrictions that have come in, so the social distancing. What I couldn't say is whether the educational facility itself is allowed to be open, because I don't get involved in educational matters. I don't know if any of the rest of the board will be able to offer anything.
Okay. Question here from Monique. What is the situation for businesses run from home? Assume they can't reopen even if they can social distance because they are in a domestic situation. I'm thinking experiences like cooking classes, craft workshops. So I guess it's a similar sort of question, but this is in a domestic environment. Does that change things?
No, I would say it makes it less likely, because all of the guidance that we've seen is outside is fine. Inside, they don't want you to do it, especially when it's going to be a domestic situation, because I think it'd be quite difficult, in a domestic situation, to have the same sort of levels of cleanliness and etc. You'd be washing the walls and all sorts all day. I suspect because it's in a class, it's going to be in the same sort of category, and that we're going to need to see what the legislation says tomorrow to be able to decide on that. The fact that it's in somebody's home means I believe it is much more likely to be told that they can't do it.
I guess this comes back to the point Annie was making, really understanding that it's that person-to-person contact.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like anything, the closer you are to the individual, the more likely it is to be prohibited at this time anyway. Okay, thank you very much. Lisa's come back to us. So Annie, you're answering her question earlier about the sort of shared space. So Lisa says, yes, how do I monitor that they don't get together inside? All my rooms have their own private bathrooms. Now, this actually sort of segues into a conversation that we're running over, but I think it's important that we probably cover this off, which is around record keeping. We've kept it till the end. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get there. We all are quite concerned. Obviously, businesses are going to have to keep details, and then it raises questions around GDPR and other bits and pieces. So I know there's been a lot of email exchange between the three of us yesterday and today already around trying to get some clarity. So I'm going to come to Deirdre first on this in particular. So in respect of Lisa's earlier question around stopping people coming together, perhaps we could sort of try and talk about how and who is responsible for enforcing that sort of social distancing within accommodation venues. Is there some liability element here? And then second, really talking about this whole trapping names and address and details and all that sort of stuff. How on earth are we going to do this? So Deirdre, let's go to you first on this.
So the guidance on the sort of GDPR compliance just came out this morning. So let me just grab it so I can just give you a quick overview. So basically it is, all hospitality, pubs, bars, restaurants, tourism, leisure, basically everybody. So you need to collect the names of staff who work at the premises, contact phone number for each member of staff, dates and times staff are at work. And for customers and visitors, the name of the customer or visitor, or if there's more than one person, then you can record the name of the lead member of the group and the number of people in the group. And then you need a contact phone number for the customer or the lead member of the group, date of visit and arrival, and if possible, departures time. All of this has to be held on for 21 days. A full list will be on our website, which will just give you some details. But yes, apologies, it only came out this morning. So, but it's quite detailed about what people need to hang on to. But at least you've got lead group booking person only, rather than the entirety of their group, which is what we were worrying it was going to happen. So yeah, I'll yeah, if somebody can put it in our Visit Kent Business website thing in the chat, then there's a link through to it there.
I think a lot of this information around record keeping is coming from Public Health England site because it's all to do with facilitating the track and trace. So if there's an outbreak, they can facilitate that sort of things. The legislation literally is coming out by the minute almost. So we're trying to sort of keep on top of this. I think it's the enforcement, and I think we're in a restaurant environment where people can book a table and you can take the name of the party of individuals and stuff. That's not so bad. In sort of bars or and pub environments, how on earth are we going to police that? Because GDPR says if you don't want to hand over your information, you don't have to. Who wants to take that? Annie, can I come to you on this?
I mean, the short answer to that is that we can't police it. It's guidance only. It's going to be a good practice thing. So obviously, if there is a COVID infection related to your business, the test and trace team can actually just contact anyone that might have been in contact with that person. That is purely the reason that we're doing it. But there is no enforcement behind it at all. So yeah, I mean, so it's really just up to whether businesses want to do it for themselves. But if I was running a business and I would want to know if someone coming into my business, maybe if they'd actually get infected, they will be asked where have they been, and then they can say we went to so and so's for a meal, and then it can all just get traced back, and it's just a way of helping stop the spread of infection, which I would think most people would be keen to do.
There's a social conscience to all of this, isn't there? About making sure you're doing the right thing. But
the question I get asked about is if people refuse to comply with any rules that come in, anybody in their own business. Actually, you've got just as much right to say, okay, you're not going to follow my requests, therefore I won't serve you. But if you don't feel comfortable about that, then you want to serve them anyway, that's fine. It's your business at the end of the day, but hopefully most people will be reasonable, but you still obviously retain the right to refuse to serve people in your own premises for whatever reason.
Thank you very much, Annie. Deirdre, am I right in thinking I think we probably saw the same guidance being issued, which there's a selection of templates available as well, which I think suggests how you might collect the data, and it gives a lovely little sort of selection of scenarios of if someone refuses to give you data, what you might say back to them. I think a lot would depend. Do you have any sort of information or any sort of suggestions as to what people could do to handle those situations better?
Well, I think, a lot of this is going to be down to our wonderful staff. And I think, I know a lot of businesses will be doing huge amounts of staff training over the last few weeks to get them ready. Notwithstanding, a lot of staff, particularly those who've been furloughed, will be feeling quite nervous about going back into the workplace and all the rest of it. But generally speaking, our staff are very good at handling situation or handling customers. So I think, templates are great, but I think actually a lot of our staff will use their own experience in order to be able to encourage people to do the right thing. But I think, the really important thing, as Annie has said, and this is about public health and, reminding customers you're doing it for their protection, trying to make it as light touch as possible. But I would encourage everybody just to read the guidance that we've just dropped in the chat now that just sets out what you need to do and to keep us all safe.
Yeah, and I think there's a question there from Paul, and the templates, literally, I think they came out an hour before we came online today. So we'll make sure through those of you that are registered here, we'll make sure those templates are and the FAQ is shared, so you can have that out there. Okay, conscious that we've run over, but I think there's been a lot of really important questions. I'm just going to ask one more question, which was from Samantha about, it mentions the government advice. We should think about posting risk assessments on websites, etc. Would environmental health like us to send them to them? So, Annie, would you like to see the risk assessments, or is it really about customer confidence?
It's great that you want to, and I'm sure if you contact your local department just for clarity, I'm sure they'd only be too pleased to just run through it with you. Obviously, as I mentioned at the top of this, we're responsible for thousands of businesses. So we've got a team of 5 officers, and there's no way that we could possibly look at thousands of risk assessments. So this is the health and safety executives that have asked for this, and they basically said if you're a large organisation, you should just publish it on your website so that staff can see that you've taken it seriously, so that your customers can see that you've taken it seriously and that you're being proactive about managing the risks. So, I mean, there's plenty of templates out there now, and examples of other companies that have done that. I'm sure you can just plagiarize one of those and adapt it to your own specific business. But yeah, I mean, it's good to do it, and you should really do it in this current situation. Again, it'd be a light touch if you were struggling with that, but your local environmental health team are only too happy to give you advice. And I think the health and safety executive have actually got a helpline, and I think actually operating. So it might just be worth calling them in the first.
Yes, if you go to the HSE website under their COVID-19, they have a sort of sample risk assessment template. Deirdre, you obviously have a campaign specifically around this consumer confidence, which has an accreditation to it or some sort of certification. Is that right?
That's right. So we're working with Visit England on, it's called We're Good to Go. So it is a kite mark, basically. It assumes that you've done all the hard work and read all the guidance and gone through the risk assessments. But once you've done that, there is a very quick online tool. It's free. And then you get a badge which says We're Good to Go. It's got, a whole toolkit with it, marketing toolkit. And then I think it's going to be, it will be the national, I suppose, recognized standard, so that business, and it'll be what customers are looking for. So if you haven't done it yet, please do. All the links are on our website, because as I said earlier, what we really need to do is, you've done all the hard work by getting your business ready. We need to get the people through the door for you now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Deirdre. There was just one more question, which we did a video with Trading Standards and Environmental Health earlier in the week, and it was around, and it included Southern Water, who quite rightly gave some very sound advice around draining tanks, because if your premises, if your venues have sort of been, the water's been stagnant, and that is not good for the development of Legionnaires. So there's some good advice from Southern Water around draining tanks, flushing systems through to make sure that you've cleared that out before you start to sort of serve first customers and all the rest of it. I think we're going to bring things to a close. I think there's all the key questions. I'm afraid there are probably plenty. It's worth reminding you that the emails will be sent out with all the links after this session, and with a link to the recording as well. The Trading Standards team have a free, at the moment it's free, business advice form. You can go onto the Trading Standards site, and there is an opportunity to submit questions, and one of the advisors will call you back. Sorry, contact details, and the advisor will call you back to deal with that. So specifically around sort of guidance around closures and sort of whether you're allowed to reopen and things like that. But also if you are deciding to change any of your business model and maybe start introducing new services and bits and pieces. Nathan, I think I covered most of it. Do you want to just make sure I didn't miss anything on the service offer there?
Yeah, I think it just falls back to what I said earlier. We're really keen to try and help people through this and kickstart the economy again. We don't want any business to go under. So while we do normally charge for our business advice, if you are struggling to overcome any problem that's been caused by COVID-19, please contact us. We'll provide you with advice free of charge. We deal with sort of, I guess our remit is compliance, but that's quite a scary word, so I don't normally like using it. But it's if you want to get your business model or your products onto the market and you need to know what the law is to be able to do that legally, that is the sort of thing that we cover. So if you find your business has had to change, you've been forced to change whether how you trade, so maybe you're moving online or you want to make completely new products, for example, a distillery that's moving to make hand sanitizer, there's stuff you're going to need to know. Come to us, we'll tell you what you need to know, and because it's COVID related, it'll be free of charge.
Nathan, thank you very much indeed. And a final plug from me really is the Kent and Medway Growth Hub. We deal a lot with the government's funding schemes and support measures and stuff like that. So if you haven't already taken advantage or haven't availed yourself of the various support measures that are out there, then you can give us a call. We have advisors that are standing by free of charge, 03333 602 300, and they'll do what they can to help. The numbers at the top of the chat. For now, though, thank you very much indeed for joining us this lunchtime. I hope you found it informative. Thank you very much to Deirdre Wells from Visit Kent. Thank you to Annie Sargent from Partnership Manager at Seven Oaks and District Council Environmental Health, and to Nathan Martin from Trading Standards. Please stay safe. Good luck with your businesses. I hope it goes well. And if you have questions, please ask one of our guests and we'll do what we can to help you going forward. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much.